Sophie Lennon's a diva walking out that door, and Midge and Lenny have found Hernando's hideaway. Stay tuned as we discuss the Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, Season 3, Episode 5.
I'm Maria Menounos, and you're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
Hey everybody, I'm Rachel Goodman, and joining me for the discussion of the Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, we've got Ashley, who loves her pastrami sandwiches, the same as Midge. And we've got Loren, who is such a fan of the show that he named his cat Mrs. Maisel after the main character.
The meowvelous Mrs. Maisel.
Yes, and as you might see on the screen, there's a picture of Mrs. Maisel, or Ms. Maisel. Maybe we don't see it, but...
It'll come up.
Yeah. So, all right, let's...
I'm rapidly trying to get this cat photo up.
We'll see it eventually.
It's all right.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah. While we're digging for the, for the picture, let me get your overall thoughts of episode 5.
I'm obsessed, can I just say. I love this episode. I'm a huge fan of Miami, and the episode starts out with Midge going to Miami. So this is the second leg of the tour that we've seen. I think there were a few stops in between that we didn't see, but they're in Miami. In Miami, you feel the vibe and the outfits that she's like walking off the taxi and into the hotel. She looks amazing. It's a palm print. It's really bright and vibrant and fun, and they're at the Fontainebleau, which is a long-time storied hotel in Miami. My grandparents actually honeymooned there, but it's old Hollywood, and it's so glamorous, and they really went retro for this hotel and brought it back to the current time that they're in on Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, which I really love.
And it's crazy. One of the things I've noticed that they've done very well with this is you really feel the 50s and the 60s.
Yes.
In my family, like, I've always been told that's what we did back then. People honeymooned in Miami. Yeah. So it felt like that's what we were seeing. Yeah. Hernando's Hideaway, if anyone caught the reference, you may not have, because it's from the Pajama Game, the musical from 1954. They have a scene that feels very familiar in tone to what we end up seeing with Lenny and Midge, which was my absolute favorite part of the episode.
Yeah.
Loren, what were your thoughts?
Well, first off, I just remembered that my wife and we honeymooned in Miami.
You did?
Yes, and then we took a cruise. I just remembered.
Oh my gosh.
All right, it happens.
Okay.
But the thing that really struck my wife and I were not just the beautiful clothes that she's worn, but also the colors that match between not just the costumes, but also the background. Like the scene where Susie and Maisel are at the pool. Midge is wearing the beautiful pink dress.
Yes.
She's sitting, the back of the chair is got the pink padding.
Hers is blue, and I think Susie's is pink, yeah.
Right, and then even the umbrellas, the sky, the water, and then some of the pool toys in the background are pastel greens and pastel yellow, like really colorful. I was really focused on that and love the fact that we don't think about that. We don't necessarily say something about that, but it's in our minds. And so hats off to casting, to production design, and also to
costume design.
Costume,
right? Yeah, that's what I thought too.
That's one thing that I've noticed throughout this entire show. Their use of the color wheel and the scheme that they're very consistent with making things very appealing, and they know what colors are going to complement each other. So I was also very impressed with that. I was impressed with the feel. As much as I love Las Vegas, when they made the jump, I was very excited for her to be in this new environment.
Same.
Let's talk first about Susie. Susie learning to swim too, and what you guys thought of that scene.
Oh my gosh, I mean, the fact that Susie grew up on water and didn't know how to swim kind of blew my mind, but it also kind of shows the class system back then, because I feel like only the rich people were vacationing and going swimming and doing all these things, and Susie did not grow up with money, and she was definitely underprivileged, and like she says, her mom was an alcoholic, and so it was kind of sad to think about it, but also amazing, because Midge is always so supportive and I feel like uplifting of Susie, and she was like, I'll teach you how to swim, girl, and she got right in the water with her, and despite despite Susie not wanting to go or do it at all. And I thought it was a really cute and special moment between the two, and just shows their friendship. And, just women helping other women is how this world goes around, and we got to help each other succeed.
Absolutely. Yeah. Loren, did you have something you wanted to add?
No, I was just thinking about season 2 was all Midge and her family up in the Catskills where they would summer, so the water was her thing. And again, you talk about the well-to-do families who could afford that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's we see these different representations of people who might have existed back in this world.
Right.
And I love that we have a character like Susie, because if we were to go and look up, any, like 1950s in style, they might show us someone who more encompasses the way that Midge looks.
Yeah.
And maybe that's the way that the advertisements worked back then, where you would see the way that a typical female looked. But I love that they're showing that this wasn't always the case, that people still had different looks and different types of people still existed, especially in different socioeconomic circles too.
Yeah, for sure. And she looks like a fish out of water at this posh Miami pool and scene, and she doesn't want to take off her leather. She's such a New Yorker in that way. But Midge really gets her to kind of chill out, calm down, like they're on vacation. It's Miami after all. You have to live it up and enjoy it. And she eventually gives in and sort of gets a beer and relaxes, and it's all good.
Now, let's talk about Sophie Lennon. So obviously Susie gets the call to go back. She does, which is another thing that bothered me, because she's letting Sophie walk all over her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So Susie goes back to New York, and it's not pretty, as we would have expected. Sophie is just being the ultimate diva. Mm-hmm. Her acting was so off too. I was like, what is wrong? Like, what is wrong with this person?
Yeah.
She doesn't even memorize her lines. She's the one who wants to do this.
I know. Yeah. That was kind of shocking to me too. I was like, why is she reading her lines from the paper? I was like, is this what happens in a normal cold read like they're doing? And maybe it does, but I don't know.
So if they're going to go on Broadway, there would be a time where they would have the script. But eventually, by this point, considering Gavin Hawke was off book, she should have been off book.
That's what I thought.
Right.
That's it. I didn't see anyone else, unless they were kind of standing on the sidelines. Mm-hmm. I didn't see anyone else with a script. So
right. And the door scene, when Sophie's goes over to the door, I'm like, is she going to come back? And she comes back in, closes the door. I'm like, okay, she's remembering, putting sense memory what a door is, and then she decides, going to go through the door again. What's Sophie doing?
Didn't you guys kind of get the sense, too? We've never really seen a vulnerable side to her. Sophie is always just kind of stone-faced and such a diva and so strong. And I really felt like she's insecure. She does not feel confident in her role acting, and she's letting it, come out in weird ways, like throwing tantrums, basically, during rehearsals with all these seasoned pros. And usually she's the seasoned pro. She's the one drawing in huge crowds, and now she feels like the underdog and feels like everyone's kind of looking at her like she's an idiot, and they are.
Yeah, especially next to Gavin Hawke.
Totally.
Yeah, and he seems like he's pretentious too in his own way, and I thought he probably will have his own moments of being a diva.
Yeah.
But at least he showed up. At least he's off book, and at least he's being professional while they're working.
That's true.
That says a lot, and people are going to want to work with him. That's a big thing, coming up and taking acting classes. You learn very quickly, if you're going to act like Sophie and be one of those
diva,
people are not going to want to work with you.
Right.
But if you remember from an episode or two back, he actually told Susie, I'm getting paid really well for this, right?
Yeah.
And she said yes. And then who's my co-star? Oh, Sophie. Oh, Sophie. All right. Well, this should be interesting.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like, I think he's like, I'm going to do my job. I'm getting paid a lot of money.
She better bring it.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, really quickly, everything going on with Joel and Mei. I keep saying Mei. We got a kiss on screen.
Yeah.
And if we had not known something was going on, well, now we know.
We do know.
Yeah. It's official, at least, kind of.
Although we don't know official because we don't think they're actually dating. Didn't they allude to that, or Joel mention that?
He said that it was very new.
Yeah.
And we haven't seen them officially. Like, you know, the normal love story, they kiss and then they talk about it, or we see the first kiss. I don't even know if this is the first kiss. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I was going to say, we're not seeing a ton of the storylines, so we're not seeing them at home together or go out on date night or do any of these sort of special moments like we would have seen if it were Midge and Joel. So it's kind of hard to tell where this relationship is and where it's going, because it does seem just really new and sort of casual at this point.
And I would guess that she would be just as uncomfortable to, you know, if it does get serious.
Yeah.
The idea of it being serious to her is probably very uncomfortable, considering the bringing him home to her parents. I'm sure that would be, like, she would not want to do that.
And they really don't know a lot about each other at this point. It's kind of like a mystery, both of them. She is such a mysterious character, if you ask me. I just don't know her story at all. And so the fact that he doesn't either, I'm like, okay, well, they're not that serious yet.
Yeah.
Well, wait, she already bought him a bauble, a jukebox. That's kind of serious.
Okay, maybe that is a little bit. Okay.
Brought it to the club.
Yes, that's right.
That was a freebie, Loren. Come on.
I know.
Okay, let's talk about the parents leaving, and then we want to touch on Lenny and Midge.
Yes.
So just really quick with the parents. Boiling point happened, and now they're in Miami.
We have never seen Rose have a real, like, breakdown screaming. Usually she's so reserved and she's so elegant and poised, and you would never see her, like, raising her voice outside of her house. And she is in the streets screaming, literally at Shirley, and having a breakdown, and then she finally leaves. Thank goodness, because I can't take any more of those four living under the same roof. I'm like, get them out of here, people. So they head to Miami, and they're here to bug Midge.
Yeah, that's interesting. They just, weren't they going in the taxi to go to dinner?
Yeah.
I think that was the idea, and then all of a
was
sudden they're in Miami.
Because they knew that Shirley was making cabbage.
Stuffed cabbage,
And they were
yeah.
like, yeah, no, goodbye. And, like, they didn't really, I at first thought maybe they're just trying to get out for a couple of hours because they can't be there.
Right.
But then suddenly they're in Miami, and it's like, okay,
Right.
Yeah.
cool.
They
Well,
said, we're taking the train, we were going to take it west, and then we decided...
They went to Daytona,
Right.
and then they were like, we'll go back east, and then we went south.
Yeah. I kind of thought, too, did you guys get this feeling? Maybe I'm just too sensitive, but they weren't coming for Midge or to support her or see her show. They were really doing this for selfish reasons, so I kind of felt bad for her because she was so excited to see them, and she was like, we can have a mini family vacay, and you guys can come see my show, and we can do this whole thing, and they were kind of just interested in, like, getting out of Dodge, basically,
Yeah.
back in New York, and now, I don't know, I feel like she was a little bit, like, let down. They weren't excited for her show, excited for her.
And that's where we get the whole name of the episode, Comedy or Cabbage, because Rose
Yeah.
was not really
Right.
thrilled about being there with the comedy stuff.
And again, the
So-
reversal between parent and child,
Yeah.
it's switched around. They were running back home,
Yeah.
and the home for them, their safe space, was their daughter Maisel,
Yeah.
or Midge.
Midge, yeah.
Yeah. Now, okay, let's transition to the final topic, because
Yes.
I want to say this is probably my favorite scene, I'll say scenes between Lenny and Midge that we've had the entire show. I felt like it was handled very elegantly, and the subtext that we don't directly get between the two of them, him in bringing her to this, like, you know, kind of nightclub where they're filming it and interviewing people,
Yeah.
and introducing her as his wife, and they have this whole, like, you know, they're riffing off of each other. I have always felt their chemistry, and this I was so fascinated by this entire sequence and the way that they laid it out, and then their dinner in the Cuban, you know, inspired restaurant. I thought it was very well done.
I was also just surprised. I was so excited and surprised when he showed up to the hotel in Miami and is like, I'm living in Miami now. Because we saw him in episode 2 and he was still performing in New York when he got arrested and the whole thing went down with Abe.
Yeah.
And now here he is in Miami and he surprised her, and
I got the feeling between these scenes that some of it had to do with maybe her, and that, I don't know if he would have known where she was, but
he knew she was on tour with Shy. He said that in the episode. Yeah, you're right.
So he could have, you know, followed her there, maybe. But even if he didn't, he probably thought, okay, well, I'm here anyway, and I know she's here.
Yeah.
When he, a couple of times, like, as, you know, under the guise of the character, he said, like, here's the love of my life. And I felt like he actually meant it.
I do too.
And when they had the scene where they were dancing, and just the way that he was talking to her and the way that they weren't really speaking, in just the body language I got from him was that that he will always love her. And
kind of take care of her. He was a little protective, but a little, he's proud of her. They've always had this really strong chemistry, and I have always loved that storyline. I've always wanted them to get together. So then now I'm like, it's happening, finally.
Well, so here's my thing. I remember a couple of episodes we were talking about Joel, and I've never felt like Joel and Midge had the same frequency.
Yeah.
With Lenny and Midge, I feel like they are exactly the same. They are aligned. They are the same, like they're from the same cloth, and that they have that comedic sense and that drive, and they are just meant to be and complement each other. And so when I feel like they're the same caliber. And so when I feel them together, it just makes sense. I want to talk about that final line where they almost sleep together, but don't. I have some theories on it, but what do you guys think?
I'm going to wait to hear your theory.
Okay,
Yeah.
I literally was dumbfounded. I didn't really understand. So they said something about maybe at a later date. So she walks back to his apartment or hotel, whatever it is, with him, and I really thought they were going to sleep together or end up together, and I was so excited. I was like, this is going to be official. They're going to be two comedians on the road, and it's going to be so cool, and big celebrities, and then she kind of just walked away from the situation. I was like, why did you walk him back to his room, but then you're going to walk home without anything happening? I don't know.
So I want to say, one, I loved the call back to the conversation she had with Carol, because Midge does look in the room. We don't see if it's dirty or not, because Carol had said if it's dirty, walk away. I don't think that's what Midge was thinking anyway, because this is Lenny. He says, hey, this is the very end, before she walks away. Well, after she's starting to walk away and it's clear that she's going to leave before they do anything. He says, hey, maybe someday before I'm dead. That's all he says. And Midge says, it's a date. I'm taking it one of two ways. One, he's saying, in a way, even if we don't end up together, maybe one day we'll hook up because it's meant to be, because that could be such a passionate moment for both of us. Or two, maybe one day we'll actually end up together because we belong together. And the thing is that he, as wonderful as they could be, there's some darkness to him. And I feel like it could end very, very badly for her, or for him too. But it's just, those are my theories, is that without really saying it, they were both acknowledging this spark that they have between the two of them.
And another thing, he actually died, was it 1966?
In real life.
In real life, Lenny Bruce died, so that could allude to something that will happen, happens in the timeline. We've got a new season now.
But don't you guys kind of feel... This is what I feel with her and Joel, too. She is not focused on her love life right now. Even as much as I want her to be, and I want her to, like, find love and have this romance and do this whole thing, they kind of know maybe now is not the right time. He's touring for comedy. She's touring for comedy. They're not focused on this. So he said maybe one day they'll be at the same place. And timing is everything, as we know, with relationships. So that's kind of my fingers crossed moment. I'm hoping it is going to happen, just maybe a little bit down the line when she's not touring the world with Shai Baldwin. You know?
That makes sense, too.
Can I mention real quick the Miami After Dark show? So that was the show that Lenny was on. That he brought in Midge to be on. Now that's a nod to Playboy's Penthouse that Hugh Hefner actually had. It was an actual TV show, 1959-60, in which Bruce actually appeared in 1959 on The Real Show. And it was, I believe it was in a studio, but a studio meant to look like Hefner's Chicago apartment.
That makes so much sense. I thought it looked familiar and I could not place it, but I've seen footage of that before.
Now, we did get Zsa Zsa Gabor, and she made a joke about potential, hey, be careful, Lenny, I might marry you. She had 8 husbands, which is why they made that joke.
Lord.
So I just found that interesting.
If you want to know more about Hugh Hefner, there's and that show, there's an amazing docudrama on Amazon Prime called The Hugh Hefner Story. It's part documentary and part scripted. It's beautiful and amazing. Gives you more insight into this kind of world.
Awesome. Love it.
So really quickly, let's just do our segments. We have got no news today, but we have our Women in Comedy.
Yay!
So, Ashley, take it away.
I'm doing women in comedy, and I'm the least funny person you know, but I really love surrounding myself with funny people, and yes. Thank you. And I really love Melissa McCarthy. She's probably my favorite female comedian. Her movies literally just make me cry laughing to where I can't breathe and I'm just giggling. Of course, we all know her from Bridesmaids. I'm actually a huge fan of her from Gilmore Girls, which Gilmore Girls is produced and created by executive producer Amy Sherman-Palladino, who created this show, The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. So that's kind of the tie-in here, which is really cool. But of course, Bridesmaids, and the show that the movie that I really love was The Heat with Sandra Bullock. It was hysterical. I literally was crying, laughing, and my husband was like, what is wrong with you? But she's had so many amazing credits. She's so down to earth. I've heard her in all the interviews, and she's just amazing. She's created a plus-size clothing line. I feel like she's done it all. She actually lives in my neighborhood. Wow. And I saw her husband walking down the street with their daughter the other day, and I was totally fangirling, like Googling, like, oh my God. I really hope to see her one day and to meet her.
So real quickly, a nod back to Gilda Radner, who was the woman who we covered a couple episodes ago. Yeah. Melissa McCarthy is a huge Gilda fan and was actually featured in the Love Gilda documentary, seen reading some of Gilda's journals.
Wow.
Yeah, so
she's such a powerhouse, though. I love Melissa McCarthy.
Yeah, absolutely.
She does it all.
So let's get to our predictions.
Your AfterBuzz TV prediction.
Ashley, what do you think?
Oh my gosh, there's so much. I want to say, can we have Lenny Bruce back in the next episode? That's my dream. Yeah. Is that going to happen? I don't know if that's realistic, the way they ended things this episode. And then also, I would love to see the parents obviously move out of the Maisel's house. Abe and Rose really need some time away. And I really want to see them more supportive of Midge. I'm really hoping for that in the future, that they come around and they respect her art and her comedy. And I don't know, we see some sort of change in them with that, you know? It's hard to watch as a daughter. Like, you just really need your parents' support and to be proud of you.
Absolutely. And Loren?
I think we're going to have to find out what's going to happen with Sophie. And if Susie's going to remain her manager or drop her, she's going to have to, Sophie's going to have to decide what's important to her. And I wonder if Sophie's character is going to remain that steadfast, that character, or not, if she's going to kind of break and become more human.
Interesting. Awesome. Well, that about wraps up our time for tonight. Ashley, where can everybody find you?
You can follow me on Instagram at Ashley Fultz, Fultz.
And Loren?
At Loren Kling, LorenKling.
And I'm Rachel Goodman. You can find me on Twitter at Rach Goodman and on my Instagram author account at Rachel Radner Author. Until tomorrow, we'll be back to cover the final episodes of Mrs. Mrs. Maisel. We will see you then. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Our founder, Keven Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.